Some people say that the most important choices in life announce themselves with fanfare, dramatic music swelling in the background as destiny calls. But the truth is, life-altering decisions often arrive in ordinary moments. Mine came on a Tuesday afternoon in Eleanor Blackwood's penthouse, with rain pattering against floor-to-ceiling windows and the faint scent of jasmine hanging in the air. "Marry me, James," she said, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler. "When I'm gone, my entire fortune will be yours." $40 million. The number hit me like a physical force. 40 million reasons to say yes to a woman I admired but didn't love. 40 million ways to escape the endless struggle of fundraising for St. Martin's Orphanage. I was 7 years old when I first walked through those doors at St. Martin's. Scared, alone, a child nobody wanted. My clothes were threadbare, and I carried everything I owned in a plastic grocery bag. Sister Margaret was the first person who looked at me, really looked, not with pity, but with recognition, like she could see straight through to my soul. "Family isn't always blood, James," she told me once, her weathered hands clasping mine. "Sometimes it's the people who choose you when no one else will." For 30 years now, I've dedicated my life to ensuring no child feels what I felt. I became the director of St. Martin's 15 years ago, and every day I walk those same hallways where I once hid my tears. Every face I see reminds me of my own. Wondering if they're unworthy of love, if there's something fundamentally wrong with them that made their parents leave. Eleanor's proposition should have been simple. A business arrangement that would ensure financial security for the rest of my life. But the ice in her eyes, as she delivered her condition, told me everything I needed to know. "You'll have to cut all ties with St. Martin's Orphanage," she said. "I won't have my husband wasting his time, our time, with other people's cast-offs." The words hit me like a physical blow. Other people's cast-offs. Is that what I had been? Is that what the children under my care were to her? "Those children need me," I said quietly. Eleanor's laugh was brittle. "Need you? Please, James. They need money, resources, things I can provide in abundance. Think of what you could do with $40 million after I'm gone. You could build 10 orphanages, if that's what you want." But she didn't understand. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about being there, physically present, for children who believed everyone in their lives would eventually leave. It was about proving, day after day, that some people stay. I declined her proposal that afternoon. The look on her face when I chose St. Martin's over her fortune was something I'll never forget. Shock giving way to cold fury, as if no one had ever denied Eleanor Blackwood anything in her life. "You'll regret this," she said simply. I didn't. Not for a single day. I returned to St. Martin's that evening and sat with 8-year-old Lily as she worked through her math homework. I helped 13-year-old Marcus with his science fair project. I read a bedtime story to the youngest children. These moments, these small, precious connections, were worth more than any fortune. Life continued. The orphanage struggled financially, as always, but we made do. I poured everything I had into those children. My time, my energy, my heart. And I never thought about Eleanor Blackwood again. Until 3 months ago. The doctor's face was grave as he delivered the news. Terminal pancreatic cancer. 6 months to live, maybe less. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as I sat in that sterile examination room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan," he said. "We can make you comfortable, but—" I didn't hear the rest. My mind was racing ahead, not to my own mortality, but to the children. What would happen to them when I was gone? The foundation I'd established was meant to provide for them, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. I was still processing this devastating news when Eleanor's legal notice arrived. Somehow, she'd learned of my diagnosis. And now she was claiming that our brief engagement, a relationship that never even made it to the altar, entitled her to a place in my will. The same will that leaves everything to St. Martin's children. My attorney, Michael Reeves, didn't mince words. She's hired the best lawyers in the state, James. She's determined to take what these kids need. I felt a coldness settle in my bones that had nothing to do with my illness. In the face of my impending death, Eleanor had decided to wage war against orphaned children, against my family, my real family. Some battles you choose, others choose you. As my body weakens daily, Eleanor's legal assault grows stronger. But they don't know what I know, that when you've spent your life fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves, you develop a particular kind of strength. I don't have much time left, but every breath I take will be in service to the promise I made long ago, that these children would always have someone who puts them first, always have someone who chooses them. Even if it's the last thing I do. The cancer moves through me like a thief, stealing small pieces of my independence each day. First came the fatigue, bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of rest can touch. Then the pain, starting as a dull ache and growing more insistent by the week. I hide the worst of it from the children, swallowing my pills behind closed doors, arranging my face into a mask of normalcy before stepping into the common areas. But Melissa, our oldest at 17, sees right through me. She's been at St. Martin's for a decade now, and we share a particular bond. Both of us arrived here battered by life, determined never to let it break us. "You don't have to pretend with me," she says one evening, finding me hunched over my desk, medical bills spread out before me. I know what dying looks like. Her mother had succumbed to cancer 3 years before Melissa came to us. The memory lives in her eyes, that particular knowledge no child should possess. I don't deny it. We don't lie to each other at St. Martin's. I'm trying to make sure you'll all be taken care of, I tell her. Because of that woman? The rich one who's trying to take everything? News travels fast in a place like this. Little pitchers have big ears, as Sister Margaret used to say. Eleanor Blackwood, I confirm. We were involved once. Why does she hate us so much? Melissa asks, perching on the edge of my desk. She doesn't even know us. It's a question I've asked myself repeatedly since Eleanor re-entered my life. The answer came to me gradually, pieced together from memories of our brief time together. She doesn't hate you, I say slowly. She hates what you represent to her. Eleanor grew up wealthy but emotionally abandoned. Her parents were socialites who treated their daughter like an accessory, something to be displayed when convenient and ignored when not. She once told me, in a rare moment of vulnerability, that she'd spent her childhood surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. Some people can't stand to see others receive the love they were denied, I explained to Melissa. It reminds them of their own wounds. Understanding flickers across Melissa's face. She's wise beyond her years, this child who isn't really a child anymore. That doesn't excuse what she's doing, she says firmly. No, I agree. It doesn't. The next morning, against Michael's explicit advice, I agree to meet with Eleanor. My attorney wants all communication to go through proper legal channels, but I need to look her in the eye, need to understand what drives this vendetta. She arrives at St. Martin's precisely at 10, stepping from a black town car like royalty deigning to visit the commoners. Years have been kind to Eleanor Blackwood. At 63, she remains striking. Silver hair cut in a sharp bob, posture military straight, clothes that cost more than our monthly operating budget. I meet her in my office rather than the reception area, I don't want the children to see her. Don't want them to put a face to the threat looming over their future. James, she says, removing leather gloves one finger at a time. You look terrible. I don't rise from my desk. Standing has become an exercise in will these days. Cancer will do that. She flinches slightly, then schools her features. I was sorry to hear about your diagnosis. Sorry enough to drop this absurd legal claim? A thin smile. Business and sentiment are separate matters. This isn't business, Eleanor. It's cruelty. You made your choice 3 years ago, she says, seating herself uninvited. You chose this institution over what I offered. That was your right, but actions have consequences. These are children we're talking about. Children who would have benefited enormously had you accepted my proposal. Her voice hardens. $40 million, James. Do you know what kind of difference that could have made? But your pride wouldn't allow it. It wasn't pride. Then what? She demands. What was so precious about this place that you would sacrifice everything I offered? The answer is all around us. In the children's artwork lining the walls, in the worn furniture that's hosted countless heart-to-hearts, in the very air of this place where broken souls learn to mend. Love, I say simply. The kind that asks for nothing in return. Something flickers in Eleanor's eyes, a momentary breach in her armor, before the wall comes back up. How convenient that your noble choice now faces consequences just as your health fails. What do you want, Eleanor? Really want? What's rightfully mine, she says. Recognition of what we meant to each other. A place in your legacy. I study her face, seeing past the expensive makeup to the wounded child underneath. Eleanor Blackwood, who has everything and nothing at all. We meant something to each other once, I acknowledge. But that doesn't entitle you to take from these children. I'm not taking, she says, rising. I'm claiming what should have been mine, and I will win, James. I always do. As she leaves, I feel the weight of her determination like a physical pressure. Michael was right. She won't stop, not until she's stripped St. Martin's of everything I've built. That night, I gather the children in our common room. 24 faces look back at me. From 5-year-old Tommy with his missing front teeth, to Melissa on the cusp of adulthood. My family. My heart outside my body. I need to tell you something important, I begin. And so I do. Not everything. They don't need the burden of all the details. But enough. Enough for them to understand that storms are coming, but that I will fight with my last breath to shelter them from the rain. After the younger ones are in bed, Melissa finds me again. We'll fight too, she says fiercely. All of us. This is our home too. Her words echo in my mind as I drift into uneasy sleep. Fight. Yes. But how does a dying man fight against unlimited resources and the best lawyers money can buy? The answer comes to me in dreams. Sister Margaret's voice clear as day. Sometimes, James, the strongest weapon is the truth. The summons arrives on a Thursday morning, formal legal documents demanding my presence for a deposition. Eleanor's legal team wastes no time. Michael reviews the paperwork with a grimace, shaking his head at the aggressive tactics. They're hoping you'll settle quickly, he explains, banking on the fact that you don't have the energy for a protracted legal battle. He's right about my energy. Each day now begins with a negotiation with my own body. Please, just a few more hours of clarity before the pain medication clouds my mind. Just a little more strength to complete the day's essential tasks. But Eleanor has miscalculated if she thinks my weakening body means a weakening resolve. What are our options? I ask Michael. He spreads his hands. Honestly, limited. Her claim that you had a verbal agreement to include her in your will is difficult to disprove. It's your word against hers. And I'm the dying man whose testimony might be questioned due to medication and illness. I finish for him. Michael doesn't deny it. We could offer a settlement, 10% maybe, enough to make her go away. 10% would devastate our plans for the children's future. The foundation I've established is meant to ensure St. Martin's remains open in perpetuity, providing not just shelter, but opportunities. College scholarships, vocational training, mental health support. Everything I wished for as a child. No, I say firmly, we fight. The deposition is scheduled for the following week at Eleanor's attorney's offices, a sleek downtown high-rise that screams money and power. Michael arranges for a medical transport to get me there, over my objections. But when the day arrives, I'm grateful for his insistence. My legs barely carry me from bed to bathroom. Eleanor's legal team consists of 3 sharks in expensive suits, led by Wesley Harrington, whose reputation for ruthlessness precedes him. Eleanor herself sits slightly apart, watching with the detached interest of someone observing an experiment. Mr. Sullivan, Harrington begins after the preliminaries, please describe the nature of your relationship with Miss Blackwood. For the next 2 hours, they pick apart every aspect of my brief relationship with Eleanor. When we met, a charity gala for children's literacy. How long we dated, 7 months. When she proposed, after 5 months, the exact wording of promises made. They're building a case that our relationship constituted an implied contract, that my acceptance of Eleanor's initial proposal, however brief, created obligations that outlast our separation. And isn't it true, Harrington presses, that Miss Blackwood provided significant financial support to you personally during your relationship? She was generous, I acknowledge, but I never asked for anything. Generous to the tune of $175,000, correct? Money that helped clear your personal debts? I feel Michael tense beside me. This is new information to him. I was in debt because I'd been covering St. Martin's expenses from my personal accounts, I explain. Eleanor knew this when she offered to help. So you admit she financially supported both you and the orphanage? As gifts, not obligations. Harrington smiles thinly. And yet you accepted these gifts while knowing Miss Blackwood's feelings about your continued involvement with St. Martin's? The questioning continues in this vein, twisting every kindness into calculation, every moment of connection into contract. By the time they finish, I'm exhausted, pain radiating through my abdomen despite the medication. They're building a stronger case than I expected, Michael admits as we leave. We need to consider a more substantial settlement offer. But as our car pulls away from the gleaming tower, I catch sight of Eleanor watching from a window above. Our eyes meet briefly across the distance, and in that moment, I see something unexpected. Not triumph, not anger, but something almost like regret. Back at St. Martin's, I find Melissa waiting anxiously. How did it go? I don't sugarcoat it. Not well. She absorbs this, then says, Sister Margaret's journals arrived today. My heart lifts slightly. After Sister Margaret passed 5 years ago, her personal effects were sent to her order's mother house for archiving. I'd requested her journals, hoping they might contain information about St. Martin's early days that could help our case. There's something you should see, Melissa says, leading me to my office where 3 leather-bound volumes wait. Together, we leaf through pages filled with Sister Margaret's flowing script, daily accounts of orphanage life spanning decades. And then we find it, an entry from nearly 30 years ago. October 12th, 1995. Young James asked me today why his parents left him. How does one explain such abandonment to a child? I told him what I believe with my whole heart, that family is not always blood, but rather those who choose to love us when others will not. He seemed to understand in that profound way children sometimes grasp life's deepest truths. I pray he never forgets this lesson, for I see in him a rare capacity for compassion that will serve him and others well. Melissa squeezes my hand as I brush away tears. "Keep reading," she urges. The next entry stops my breath. October 15th, 1995. Eleanor Blackwood visited today, bringing a substantial donation as usual. She asked particularly about James, our newest arrival. Something in her expression as she watched him play troubled me. When she learned he was newly orphaned, she remarked that perhaps this one might be suitable. I reminded Miss Blackwood that St. Martin's is not an adoption agency, and that all decisions are made with the children's best interests in mind. She seemed displeased, but increased her donation substantially before leaving. I read the passage twice, disbelieving. Eleanor knew me as a child? More entries follow, documenting Eleanor's regular visits, her growing interest in me specifically, and Sister Margaret's increasing concern. December 3rd, 1995. Miss Blackwood came again today, this time with a proposition. She wishes to adopt James, offering a donation large enough to renovate our entire facility in exchange. I explained our process requires thorough vetting of all potential parents, regardless of financial status. Her response, "Everyone has a price, sister," chilled me to the bone. I will be watching this situation carefully. The final entry on the matter is dated nearly 6 months later, May 17th, 1996. Miss Blackwood has finally accepted my decision regarding James. Today she informed me she will no longer support St. Martin's, effective immediately. While this places us in a difficult financial position, I cannot in good conscience place a child with someone whose interest seems more about possession than nurturing. James deserves a family who sees him for the remarkable soul he is, not an accessory to be acquired. I closed the journal, mind reeling. She wanted to adopt me. And Sister Margaret said no, Melissa adds. Do you think she remembers you? The question echoes in my mind as pieces fall into place. Eleanor's fixation on St. Martin's, her insistence that I sever ties completely, her fury when I chose the orphanage over her. I don't know, I answer honestly. But I think we just found a new direction for our defense. The courthouse steps are steeper than I remember. Each one requires concentrated effort now, my body betraying me a little more each day. Michael hovers at my elbow, ready to catch me should I stumble, but I am determined to walk into this hearing on my own 2 feet. Eleanor and her legal team are already inside, occupying the left side of the courtroom like an invading army. She doesn't look my way as I enter, her attention fixed on something just beyond the judge's bench. Judge Harriet Chen has a reputation for fairness and efficiency. She studies both parties over reading glasses as the attorneys make their opening statements. Eleanor's team paints a picture of a devoted woman betrayed by the man she loved, a man who benefited from her generosity only to discard her when a better opportunity arose. When Michael rises to speak, he takes a different approach. Your Honor, this case is not about a broken engagement or unfulfilled promises. It's about a 30-year vendetta against St. Martin's Orphanage, and against my client specifically. A vendetta that began long before Mr. Sullivan and Miss Blackwood ever met as adults. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. Eleanor's head snaps up, eyes narrowing. Michael continues, We have evidence that Miss Blackwood's interest in Mr. Sullivan dates back to his childhood, when she attempted to adopt him from St. Martin's under questionable circumstances. When denied, she withdrew all financial support from the orphanage. We believe this current legal action is the culmination of a decades-long attempt to control both Mr. Sullivan and the institution that protected him. Eleanor's attorney is on his feet immediately. Objection, this is irrelevant and inflammatory. Judge Chen looks intrigued. I'll allow it, but Mr. Reeves, you'd better have documentation to support these claims. We do, Your Honor, Michael confirms, producing Sister Margaret's journals along with notarized statements from the Mother Superior confirming their authenticity. As the journals are submitted into evidence, I watch Eleanor's face. The perfect composure slips for just a moment, revealing something raw and wounded underneath. Our eyes meet across the courtroom, and for the first time, I see her clearly. Not as the elegant, powerful woman who once proposed to me, but as someone who has spent a lifetime trying to fill an emptiness that money cannot touch. The proceedings continue with testimony from financial experts about the orphanage's needs and the impact Eleanor's claim would have on the children's future. A child psychologist speaks to the importance of stability for orphaned children, particularly those who have already experienced significant trauma and loss. When it's my turn to testify, Michael helps me to the stand. The pain medication makes my thoughts slightly fuzzy around the edges, but I focus on the faces of the older children who have come to support me. Melissa, Marcus, and Dion, each representing the hundreds we've cared for over the years. Mr. Sullivan, Michael begins, did you recognize yourself in Sister Margaret's journal entries? Yes, I reply. Though I have no memory of meeting Miss Blackwood as a child, I was only 7 then and had just lost my parents in a car accident. And when you met Miss Blackwood as an adult, did she ever mention knowing you previously? Never, I say firmly. She presented our meeting as chance. We were seated at the same table at a charity gala. Michael nods. In your opinion, what does Miss Blackwood truly want from this lawsuit? I consider the question carefully, looking directly at Eleanor as I answer. I believe she wants what she's always wanted, control. Over me, over St. Martin's, over a narrative she's been crafting for 30 years. During cross-examination, Harrington tries to discredit Sister Margaret's journals, suggesting they might be fabricated or misinterpreted. He hammers at the financial support Eleanor provided during our relationship, framing it as evidence of an implicit agreement, but the damage has been done. The revelation of Eleanor's decades-long obsession has shifted the atmosphere in the courtroom. As the day's proceedings draw to a close, Judge Chen announces she'll review all evidence and testimony before making her ruling. This is a complex case with implications that go beyond simple contract law, she notes. I want to be thorough. Outside the courthouse, reporters gather, drawn by the combination of wealth, scandal, and human interest. Michael shields me from most questions, but one reporter breaks through. Mr. Sullivan, given your condition, why fight this battle at all? Why not settle? The question stops me. The answer seems so obvious to me, but perhaps it isn't to someone on the outside looking in. Because some things are worth fighting for with your last breath, I tell her. The children of St. Martin's deserve someone who will put their needs first. Always. That's what family does. As we drive back to St. Martin's, exhaustion claims me. I drift in and out of consciousness, fragments of the day replaying in my mind. One image stays with me. Eleanor's face as Sister Margaret's journals were read into evidence, the mask of confidence cracking to reveal something vulnerable and human underneath. At the orphanage, the children are waiting anxiously for news. Even the youngest sense the gravity of what's happening. I gather them in the common room, choosing my words carefully. The judge is thinking about everything she heard today, I explain. We don't know yet what she'll decide. But you looked really sick up there, 10-year-old Aria observes with a child's brutal honesty. What if you die before she decides? The question hangs in the air, giving voice to the fear I see in all their eyes. Then you'll have Michael, I tell them, and Miss Patricia and Mr. Hector and all the staff who love you, and you'll have each other. But we want you, Aria insists. Tears welling, I gather her close, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood. Some parts of me will always be here, I promise. In the gardens we planted together, in the stories we've shared, in the way you take care of each other. That night, unable to sleep, I sit in the garden behind St. Martin's. The moon is full, casting silver light across roses Sister Margaret planted decades ago. They bloom year after year, outliving their caretaker, just as St. Martin's has outlived its founders. A noise behind me makes me turn. Eleanor stands at the garden entrance, alone, without the armor of her legal team. You shouldn't be here, I say, too tired for anger. I needed to see you. She moves closer, settling on the bench beside me. Away from the courtroom, away from all of it. We sit in silence for a long moment, the night air cool against our skin. Did you know? I finally ask. When we met at that gala, did you recognize me? Eleanor's hands twist in her lap. Yes, she admits. I'd kept track of you over the years. Why? She looks up at the moon, her profile sharp against the night sky. Because you were supposed to be mine. Sister Margaret had no right to deny me. I was a child, Eleanor, not a possession. I would have given you everything, she says fiercely. The best schools, travel, opportunities most orphans couldn't imagine. But would you have given me love? I ask quietly. The kind that accepts rather than molds. The kind that sees value in who someone is, not who they might become with enough money and influence. Eleanor doesn't answer immediately. When she does, her voice is barely audible. I don't know if I know how to love like that. The admission hangs between us, more honest than anything she's said before. I never forgot you, she continues. This small, serious boy with eyes too old for his face. When I saw you again at that gala, it felt like fate. A second chance. To do what, Eleanor? Finish what you started 30 years ago? Finally get your way? To make things right, she insists. To give you the life you deserved. I have the life I deserve, I tell her. I have purpose. I have family. I have love. But you're dying, she says bluntly. Everyone dies, Eleanor. The question is what we leave behind. She studies me in the moonlight. You really believe that, don't you? That what matters is what remains after we're gone? I have to, I say simply. Otherwise, what's the point of any of it? Eleanor stands, smoothing her immaculate clothes. The hearing resumes tomorrow. I know. I won't withdraw my claim. I didn't expect her to. Then I'll see you in court. As she turns to leave, she pauses. I did love you, James, in my way. I know, I reply. That's what makes this so sad. After she's gone, I remain in the garden until dawn breaks over the eastern wall. Each breath feels like a gift now, numbered and precious. But as the sun rises, illuminating the children's artwork hanging in windows and the bicycles leaning against the wall, I feel a sense of peace. Whatever happens in that courtroom, I've already won the battle that truly matters. I've shown these children what it means to fight for family, to choose love over fortune, to stay when it would be easier to go. Judge Chen's courtroom is packed for the final day of hearings. Word has spread about the dying orphanage director fighting a wealthy socialite, and the public's fascination with David versus Goliath stories has drawn spectators and press alike. I'm weaker today. The medical team adjusted my pain medication overnight, and while the edge of agony has dulled, so has my mental clarity. Michael notices my struggle and leans close. "We can request a continuance," he whispers. "Give you time to recover strength." I shake my head. Time is the one thing I don't have to spare. Eleanor arrives, flanked by her legal team, but something has changed. The confident stride is muted, her expression pensive rather than determined. She glances my way briefly, then looks quickly away. Judge Chen calls the court to order and addresses both parties. "I've reviewed all submitted evidence, including Sister Margaret's journals and the financial records from both Mr. Sullivan's foundation and Miss Blackwood's donations. Before I render my decision, I'll hear final statements from both parties." Harrington rises first, adjusting his impeccable tie. His closing argument focuses on legal precedent and the financial entanglements between Eleanor and myself, skillfully sidestepping the revelations about her past interest in adopting me. He paints Eleanor as a woman whose generosity was exploited, whose heart was broken, and whose reasonable expectations were betrayed. When Michael stands for our closing statement, he keeps it brief. "Your Honor, this case has never been about money. It's about a man's right to determine his own legacy. James Sullivan has dedicated his life to providing for children who have no one else. His will reflects that commitment. Miss Blackwood's claim threatens not just Mr. Sullivan's wishes, but the future of dozens of vulnerable children who depend on St. Martin's Orphanage. We ask the court to dismiss Miss Blackwood's claim and allow Mr. Sullivan's legacy to benefit those he has chosen as his true family." Judge Chen nods thoughtfully. "Thank you, counselors. Before I deliver my ruling, I'd like to hear directly from the principal parties." She turns to Eleanor. "Miss Blackwood, would you like to make a statement to the court?" Eleanor seems surprised by the invitation, but rises gracefully. "Your Honor, I have spent my life building a fortune and a reputation. When I die, I want that fortune to benefit causes I believe in, not be scattered to strangers who never knew me. Is that so different from what Mr. Sullivan wants?" She pauses, looking around the courtroom before continuing. "I offered James everything I had, not just money but myself. He rejected both in favor of an institution. Perhaps I didn't understand then what St. Martin's meant to him. Perhaps I still don't fully understand, but I know what it feels like to be set aside for something deemed more important. I know what it means to be secondary in someone's affections." Her voice wavers slightly. "I'm not a villain, Your Honor. I'm someone who wanted to be chosen first. Just once." The raw honesty in her voice silences the courtroom. As she sits, I see her differently, not as an adversary but as someone shaped by her own wounds, fighting the only battle she knows how. Judge Chen turns to me. "Mr. Sullivan?" Michael helps me to my feet. The room swims slightly as I face the judge. "Your Honor, 30 years ago I was a frightened child who believed I was unworthy of love. St. Martin's didn't just give me shelter, it gave me purpose. It showed me that family isn't defined by blood, but by choice. The daily choice to love, to stay, to put someone else's needs above your own." I steady myself against the table. "Miss Blackwood offered me $40 million with one condition, that I turn my back on the children who need me. She wanted me to do to them what was done to me, abandon them for something deemed more important. I couldn't do that then. I can't do it now." I look directly at Eleanor. "I understand wanting to control what happens after you're gone. I understand wanting to matter, to leave a mark. But a legacy isn't something you can buy or force. It's something you build through the lives you touch and the love you give freely, without conditions. The effort of speaking leaves me light-headed." Michael guides me back to my seat as Judge Chen considers both statements. "This court will take a 30-minute recess before delivering its ruling," she announces. In the hallway outside, Melissa ambushes me with a hug. "You were amazing in there," she insists. Several other St. Martin's children have come to show support, crowding around me protectively. From the corner of my eye, I see Eleanor watching us from across the hall. Our gazes meet, and something passes between us. A moment of recognition, perhaps. Of understanding. Then she turns and walks away, her attorneys scrambling to follow. When court reconvenes, Judge Chen delivers her ruling with measured precision. In the matter of Blackwood versus Sullivan, this court finds insufficient evidence to support Miss Blackwood's claim to Mr. Sullivan's estate. Relief floods through me as she continues. While Miss Blackwood did provide financial support during their relationship, the court finds no evidence of an agreement, explicit or implicit, regarding Mr. Sullivan's will. She pauses, looking directly at Eleanor. Furthermore, the court is troubled by evidence suggesting Miss Blackwood's interest in Mr. Sullivan predates their adult relationship and may have influenced her actions in ways material to this case. The ruling continues with legal language that Michael will explain to me later, but the essence is clear. Eleanor has lost. The children will be protected. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamor for statements. Michael fields most questions, while I lean heavily on Melissa's arm. The victory feels hollow, somehow, tinged with awareness of Eleanor's pain. As cameras flash and microphones thrust forward, I catch sight of her slipping into her waiting car, alone. That evening, St. Martin's is alive with celebration. The staff has organized a modest party, complete with a lopsided cake decorated by the younger children. Their joy is infectious, and for a few hours, I let myself forget that this victory doesn't change my prognosis. As the celebration winds down, Michael pulls me aside with news. "Eleanor's withdrawn her appeal," he says, surprise evident in his voice. "Her attorneys filed the paperwork an hour ago." "That's unexpected," I manage, settling heavily into a chair. The pain is returning. It's time for another dose of medication. "There's more," Michael adds, lowering his voice. "She's making a donation to St. Martin's. A substantial one with no strings attached." I close my eyes, absorbing this information. "How substantial?" $10 million, Michael says quietly. "Enough to secure St. Martin's future for generations." The magnitude of the gift steals my breath. "Did she say why?" Michael shakes his head. "The paperwork came through her foundation, no personal message." Later that night, as the house grows quiet and the children settle into sleep, I sit in my office reviewing the foundation documents Eleanor's attorneys delivered. Everything appears legitimate. A clean, unconditional gift with no hidden clauses or expectations. A soft knock interrupts my thoughts. Melissa peers around the door. "There's someone here to see you." Before I can ask who, Eleanor steps into view. She's changed from her courtroom attire into something simpler, still elegant, but less armor-like. "May I come in?" she asks. I nod, and Melissa retreats, closing the door, but lingering protectively nearby. I can see her shadow under the door. Eleanor takes the seat across from me, her gaze cataloging the changes illness has wrought on my face. "You won," she says simply. "Nobody wins in situations like this, Eleanor." She acknowledges this with a slight tilt of her head. "Michael told you about the donation?" "Yes, but I don't understand why." Eleanor takes her time answering, studying the children's artwork that covers my office walls. "I've been thinking about what you said, about legacy." Her voice is softer than I've ever heard it. "You were right. It's not something you can force or buy." She reaches into her handbag and withdraws a slim folder. I found these in storage recently. I thought you might want them. The folder contains photographs, old Polaroids yellowed with age. I spread them on the desk, breath catching at what I see. A much younger Eleanor, holding the hand of a solemn, dark-haired boy outside St. Martin's gates. Me? You really did know me, I whisper. I volunteered at St. Martin's briefly before Sister Margaret discouraged my involvement, Eleanor explains. You wouldn't remember. You were so withdrawn then, barely speaking to anyone. I study the photographs, searching for any memory of these moments, but find none. Why me? Out of all the children? Eleanor's expression softens. You had this way of looking at people, straight through all the masks and pretenses, like you could see who they really were. She pauses. No one had ever looked at me like that before. Like I mattered as a person, not for what I could provide. The irony isn't lost on me. And yet, when we met again as adults, I tried to buy you, she finishes. Yes, old habits, I suppose. We sit in silence as I absorb this revelation, that Eleanor and I have been circling each other for 3 decades, connected by threads neither of us fully understood. The donation, I finally say. Why now? After everything? Eleanor stands, moving to the window that overlooks the garden. I told myself it was to clean up the public relations mess. The press hasn't been kind to me since the hearing. She turns back to face me. But that's not really it. Then what? You chose these children over everything I offered. You're giving your last days to ensure their future. I wanted to understand what could inspire that kind of devotion. Her voice wavers slightly. So I came here tonight, after hours, and just watched. Saw how they look at you, how they trust you, how they've built a family here, just like you said. She returns to her seat, composed once more. I can't buy what these children have, James. I can't force anyone to choose me first, but I can choose to help, with no conditions attached. That's something, isn't it? The gesture is so unexpected, so contrary to everything I thought I knew about Eleanor Blackwood, that for a moment I can only stare at her. It's more than something, I finally say. It's everything to them. She nods, satisfied, and rises to leave. At the door, she pauses. I didn't come just about the money. I wanted to say that I'm sorry, for trying to take what these children need, for not understanding what family really means to you. The words cost her. I can see it in the tightness around her mouth, the carefully controlled posture. Eleanor Blackwood doesn't apologize often, perhaps ever. Thank you, I say simply. As she opens the door, she adds, One more thing. I've arranged for specialists from Mayo Clinic to consult on your case. They'll be in touch tomorrow. Before I can respond, she's gone, leaving only the faint scent of jasmine behind. The specialists don't offer miracles. My cancer is too advanced, too aggressive for even the most experimental treatments. But they adjust my medication, improving my quality of life so that the pain recedes enough for me to be fully present in my remaining days. And there is so much to do in those days. With Eleanor's donation secured and my will uncontested, I turn my attention to ensuring St. Martin's transition will be smooth. I work with Michael to establish clear succession plans. Melissa, now 18, has decided to delay college to work at the orphanage full-time. Just for a year or 2, she insists, though we both know it might be longer. Something in her has found its purpose here, just as I did. 4 weeks after the court case, as autumn paints the garden in russet and gold, I receive another unexpected visitor. Sister Maria, who had taken over much of Sister Margaret's administrative duties in her later years, arrives with a small wooden box. We found this while reorganizing the archives, she explains. Sister Margaret left explicit instructions that it should come to you, though she didn't specify when. Inside the box is a letter. sealed and addressed to me in Sister Margaret's distinctive handwriting, along with a simple silver cross on a chain, the one she always wore. The letter, dated just weeks before her death, reads, "My dearest James, if you're reading this, then I am gone, and you have continued the work we began together at St. Martin's. I have watched you grow from a frightened boy into a man of extraordinary compassion and principle. There were many times I questioned whether I made the right decision regarding Eleanor Blackwood's offer to adopt you. She could have given you advantages I never could, but then I see the lives you've touched, the children you've guided, and I know that wealth and privilege might have smothered the very qualities that make you who you are. You were meant for this work, James. Meant to understand that family is built on choice and commitment, not obligation or blood. I leave you my cross, not as a religious symbol unless you wish it to be so, but as a reminder of the intersection where sacrifice meets love. This is where true family is born, in the willingness to put others before oneself. Whatever challenges you face, remember that you are never alone. You are surrounded by the family you have built, bound by something stronger than any legal document or biological connection. With all my love, Sister Margaret." I clutched the letter to my chest, tears flowing freely. How did she know I would need these words now, as my own journey nears its end? The final weeks pass with surprising gentleness. My body weakens, but each day brings its own small joys. Reading to the youngest children, advising the teenagers about their futures, sitting in the garden watching the seasons change. Eleanor visits occasionally, always bringing books or small luxuries for the children. She and Melissa develop an unexpected rapport, two strong-willed women who recognize something of themselves in each other. I watch their interactions with a mixture of amusement and wonder. Family forms in the strangest ways sometimes. On my last coherent day, I ask to be brought to the common room where all the children gather. 24 faces look up at me with varying degrees of understanding about what's happening. The youngest ones know only that I'm very sick. The oldest understand all too well that this is goodbye. "I need to tell you something important," I begin, echoing the words I've used so many times before. "Something about family." My voice is weak now, barely above a whisper, but they lean in, intent on catching every word. "Sister Margaret once told me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose you when no one else will. But that's only half the truth." I pause, gathering strength. "Family is also who you choose in return, day after day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." I look at each face, memorizing them. "I chose all of you, and no fortune, no power, nothing in this world could ever make me regret that choice." Melissa helps me back to my room afterward. As she adjusts my pillows, she asks, "Are you afraid?" The question deserves honesty. "Not of dying," I tell her, "but I worry about leaving all of you." "We'll be okay," she assures me. "You've made sure of that." That night, as moonlight streams through my window, I dream of Sister Margaret walking through St. Martin's halls. In the dream, she shows me scenes from the future, children laughing in the garden, Melissa guiding a new arrival through those same frightening first days, the orphanage continuing its mission long after I'm gone. "You see," she says in the dream, "this is your legacy, James. Not money or buildings, but love that continues." I slip away in the hour before dawn, peacefully, with Melissa holding one hand and, surprisingly, Eleanor holding the other. Two women who never met before my illness, now united in grief and in purpose. They say money changes people, but they never tell you how it reveals them. Eleanor wanted my devotion. These children needed my protection. In the end, we all found something we didn't know we were looking for. A family formed not by obligation or expectation, but by choice. My name was James Sullivan. I was 7 years old when I first walked through the doors of St. Martin's Orphanage. Scared, alone, a child nobody wanted. But I didn't stay that way. And neither will the children who come after me. That's the only immortality worth having.